All right, welcome to Bet the Edge. I'm Jay Croucher here with Drew Dinsick. Today, Drew, we're going to talk about Trevor Lawrence and his injury and the AFC South and the repercussions there. We'll talk stock up, stock down, the two teams involved in the Bills waxing of the Cowboys. And then we'll close out with the MVP conversation, which have injected right into my veins today. Just people, if they've gone through the 5 stages with Brock Purdy, those on a crusade against him, and we're right in anger right now. My favorite of all the stages when I'm on a horse who really antagonizes America and much of planet Earth. And we'll also talk Offensive Player of the Year, which seemed the favorite flip, which is interesting. But let's start with the Jacksonville Jaguars, who are a little bit of a mini crisis team at the moment after being in control of their fate for the 1 seed in the AFC. They're very much not in control of that anymore and not going to get that, having lost these games recently to the Bengals, Browns, and the Ravens. And with the Colts and the Texans both winning, it's now an 8-6 three-way tie at the top. Trevor Lawrence placed in concussion protocol. How does that change how you play them against the Bucs, which that game has been hovering around pick, and then also the AFC South, where the Jags are still minus 135 favorites?
Yeah, the concussion protocol thing is spooky. The Jags are on life support, not just for the South, but probably the playoffs. They could finish this, we were kind of postulating about, was there some scope for them to miss when we thought Trevor Lawrence might miss a couple of weeks with the high ankle sprain that he played through. But the concussion protocol, he's now in the hands of an independent neurologist, and I have no idea how severe it was. Apparently, it happened in the 4th quarter. I didn't see the hit. I haven't rewatched that game yet. But I would expect that the door is absolutely wide open for the Colts and the Texans to get the 3 seed in the AFC. 11-6. Winner of the AFC South could realistically jump either Buffalo or Miami in that standing there, and it's kind of wild because that I like to, this time of year. It's only 3 weeks left. It's fun to kind of think through some scenarios of like path, right? If you're making any kind of a future bet in the NFL, you should be absolutely considering like, okay, well, what is this team's path? Are they going to have to go on the road? Are they going to have to do it themselves? Or are they going to have, some home games? Is there a Rams potential where all of a sudden they're hosting an NFC Championship game instead of, being on the road as it's 8-point dogs? And as you look at the AFC right now, it could go almost any direction. There is no 1 through 7 seeding that is more likely, in my opinion, than about 4% to happen, which is crazy that we're at this late in the season and there's really no even. This is probably how it breaks. I think that the downgrade from Lawrence to CJ Beathard for running the Jags offense, which is one-dimensional and is subject to a decent pass rush, can really be somewhat effective against a weak offensive line that's dealing with their own set of injuries. This is a potential problem. So the Tampa Bay Buccaneers could absolutely be the beneficiaries of this. Their performance against the Green Bay Packers was about as perfect as you could draw up. I don't know if that was like a 95th percentile outcome for the Buccaneers in that game, and that their actual true rating ought to be close to where it was market wide going into last week, or if you need to meaningfully upgrade them. But the facts are that Baker Mayfield is playing very functional quarterback for that team right now. And I think the Jaguars defense has obviously been kind of exposed to the tune of they can be had. And so, this, if Lawrence ultimately does not go, I think the Buccaneers are going to get bet out to about probably 2.5, maybe 3. And the fact that the market is kind of where it is right now, with limits starting to open up a little bit, tells me that people, I think, are assuming he's just going to clear concussion protocol. I mean, he's clearly a guy that has a little bit of a preternatural healing ability if he's out there doing what he was doing on the ground yesterday, 2 weeks off the ankle sprain. So he probably goes, I guess. But if he does not, the Jags are in trouble. And, as hard as it is to say this out loud, I think it benefits the Colts because the Colts have the easier schedule. And at least if it comes down to Colts Texans week 18 to decide who wins the AFC South, if it's not the Jaguars, that game's in Indy. So Colts are probably the upside winners of anything long term that's happening with Lawrence, and certainly the Jags free fall looks to be breaking in favor of the Colts.
Yeah, and there's just something about Gardner Minshew where when he's at home or in a dome, as he will be for the last 3 games of the season, he just looks significantly better. I don't know what it is about the Minshew experience when you remove weather conditions, but I mean, he was magnificent against the Steelers. I thought he was masterful, and certainly against the Falcons, who look like a broken team. And then the following week they will get the Raiders. So the Colts are in decent enough position, still obviously a dog, but they have a good shot to be 10-6 heading into the final week of the season, which is incredible. I think that with the Bucks, look, the Bucks still allowed Jordan Love to have a pretty good game. I think their pass defense is just drawing dead. It's not going to get fixed. They just don't have the personnel for that. The run defense is very solid, but I mean, the fact that Baker Mayfield was able to have a game, and I understand the Packers defense isn't very good, but still, the fact that he was able to put up 0.72 EPA per play, which is, that's
it's got to be a career best.
Double what Patrick Mahomes did on average last season, I think.
Yeah.
And that's even better than what Brock Purdy does on a game-to-game basis. So I think with Mayfield, just the level that he showed, the fact that he looks fully healthy off of the ankle that he did against the Colts, that is a concern for Jacksonville. I will say that, in terms of the division and ways to bet it, the Colts are plus 275, the Texans are plus 300. I think betting either of those is kind of burning money when the respective Coach of the Year prices for Shane Steichen and DeMeco Ryans are both materially higher than that, or a little bit higher than that, where if either of those guys win the division, I see almost no way that they don't win Coach of the Year. And you've still got to bank against, Shanahan at 14-3, not winning over them. If Dan Campbell runs the slate and goes 13-4, potentially he could beat one of them. But I think at that point, they're extremely short to win. And also, I think both of those guys can win without the division if they get to 10 wins and make the playoffs. So I think that Steichen and Ryans are the best bets there. And to be honest, I think what everyone has kind of missed about Coach of the Year and what is missing in the handicap of that market is people aren't realizing just how momentous and how much equity is tied up into the fact that Ryans and Steichen have to play each other in week 18. Yeah. And someone has to win that game, and the winner of that game is very likely in the playoffs. And so, coming into this week, I thought that Shanahan was extremely live, and I would still have him third favorite to win. But the fact that Steichen and Ryans were able to bank wins, particularly Ryans as a 3.5-point dog with Case Keenum, where if they lost that game, they're 7-7 and he's on life support. But the fact they were both able to win, I think, means that week 18, I think it's pretty solidly red odds that your winner of that game is your Coach of the Year.
You don't have to go too far back in recent memory, though, to identify a Texans-Colts game that ended in a tie, Jay. So let's not say that someone has to win. And honestly, there was a good portion of overtime. I thought Texans-Titans was in a tie.
Keenum was getting back deep in his own territory.
Yeah. But no, I think that week 18 could very well be a play-in game for the winner. It could be your Coach of the Year runoff between those two coaches. And the fact that both clubs were not expected to compete this year and how they have done it is pretty impressive. And that gets people excited to vote for you for Coach of the Year more than being the best coach like Kyle Shanahan. So I don't understand why we do this with this award. It makes me kind of crazy, but I think that is the way things will go. Worth noting that there is still in the back of my head Gardner Minshew potentially derailing this, right? Like he's capable of going out on any given Sunday and really kind of completely, driving the offense into a ditch. They're 2.5-point favorites on the road this week, which is it's a healthy amount of credit for a Colts team, but that's okay. I would say Texans are probably the team to follow the most closely this week because CJ Stroud remains in concussion protocol, which was not kind of the news I was expecting to hear. Like I thought this morning there were going to be some talk about, he's progressing through blah, 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 but that's not where we're at, which is a little concerning because they play the Cleveland Browns this week. And that is it's a much tougher draw, albeit at home. It's a much tougher draw than the Falcons.
Yes, I agree. And that, to be fair, the Stroud concussion, that looked about as bad of a concussion as you can get in terms of the way that he reacted to it. The fact that, he didn't even get a limited practice in on the Friday or anything. That might be one that lingers, just purely speculating there. But I mean, that would throw a wrench into things. I think with Minshew, I kind of trust Minshew in it though, just with Steichen, okay. With the fact that I would guess, and again, this is just kind of speculating without knowing anything, but the fact that Michael Pittman was able to walk off by himself in good spirits after the game, telling people that he's fine, extra days break, I would think that he is a good chance to play in clear concussion protocol with that extra day for Atlanta. And then all the reporting has been that Jonathan Taylor is coming back this week. Yeah. So all of a sudden you have Taylor, you have Pittman, you have an Atlanta team that is just completely broken at the moment. And I think if Steichen wins that game, he is your coach of the year favorite in the market if he's not in reality right now.
I know we just said it's unpredictable how it's going to go, but is it too early to start thinking about how to line Colts as a 3 seed, welcoming Joe Flacco to town in a rematch of one of the more fun games of the season? Boy. Remember that Gardner Minshew versus Myles Garrett game? I remember PJ that like it was yesterday. Yeah, it was PJ Walker, but with Flacco in now and the state of the health of the Browns is obviously pretty sad. But are they going to be Pick'em?
Yeah, I mean, Browns are 1 point better than your average team on neutral, and the Colts are 1.5 points worse. By that point, if they're fully healthy with Taylor back and everything, maybe a little bit worse. Yeah, I would have thought around Pick'em. I also don't understand how the market is really rating Cleveland. I don't understand with all of Houston's injuries and the Stroud stuff why they're still 2.5 point favorites.
I agree
over Cleveland. So I don't get that. And look, Flacco's not been good, but Flacco's been a Gardner Minshew-esque. Like he's probably played at that level. But the Browns continue to rack up injuries as well. But yeah, I mean, I kind of don't want to see that game necessarily. I guess it would be fun. I mean, I really hope that the Colts do well. So if they've gotten the 3 seed, that's great. But it feels like, I mean, the Jags are such an uninspiring watch at the moment, though, too. So maybe Colts or Stroud in the 3 seed is the better outcome.
Yeah, I got some Jags 14-1 to miss the playoffs that I grabbed when I thought T-Law was going to miss for a couple weeks. They lost anyway, so it hasn't really. Its equity's continuing to build there, and I have some Houston to win the South. So the Max Payne situation for me is the Colts win the South, and then the Jags get in as a wild card, which is actually possible because they have some tie breaks over some teams that they're in the mix with there. But I think we're going to have a healthy dose of AFC South in the AFC playoff picture, and that's probably not going to be fun for entertainment factor.
No,
we'll see.
That is probably correct. All right, before we get to Bills Cowboys, unwrap an early Christmas present this Saturday, Drew, with an NFL doubleheader. It all begins at 3 p.m. Eastern. We take you up to kickoff in Pittsburgh between the Bengals and Steelers on NBC and Peacock. Then at 7:30, it's an exclusive Peacock matchup as Josh Allen and the Bills look to stay in the postseason mix when they travel to Los Angeles to face the Chargers. For all the anointing of the Buffalo Bills as the best team in the AFC, which I think they may well be, I still only make them -140 to make the playoffs. So they're still very much every game counts a ton. If they lose to Miami in Week 18, they were in big, big trouble. But they're still our stock-up team after Week 15. They are 13.5 point favorites against the Chargers. A completely dominant, just complete evisceration of the Cowboys. And to me, the most interesting thing with the Bills has been the progression of their defense where, and I'm sorry, I can't recall who quoted this out, but it might have been Aaron Schatz, where he said that the Bills' first 5 weeks of the season, effectively the best defense in football by DVOA. Then there's about a 5-week stretch where they were the worst, and now back to being an elite defense. So What are you seeing from the Bills defense? Where would you rank that going forward?
Yeah, they got solid replacement level play finally at the linebacker position, which has really helped elevate the unit as a whole. The secondary, bringing in Russell Douglas, was an absolute smash of a move. And actually, they have some depth there. The schedule is not kind to them in terms of opponents these last few weeks, but having a late bye certainly seems like it might have helped this team. There's definitely last 2 weeks, like neither performance was even actually all that impressive, I guess. Their most exceptional player on offense these last 2 weeks has been James Cook. Did not have that on my bingo card, certainly. And actually, he was one of the more impressive and outstanding players overall in the NFL yesterday. he had a quarterback, type of impact on that game, which is rare for a running back. So, congratulations to finally getting James Cook going. Good offensive line, healthy offensive line, good running back. This time of year, if you're playing competent defense paired with that, then you are a factor. And the Bills, I think, they don't entirely control their own destiny, because they could win out and be 11-6 and not have tie breaks over some of the other 11-6 wildcard teams. And that's a problem. Like, that's absolutely crazy, but it is within the scope of possibility that the Bills win the AFC East still. And it is within the scope of possibility that the Bills win out, lose the AFC East, and are not in the playoffs, which is absolutely wild. These next two games are very, very friendly to the Bills. They are 13.5-point favorites right now. Excuse me, that's come down. There's been some Chargers action. Apparently, somebody is dying to get involved with Easton Stick and Stickman and Coach Giff. Is it GIF or is it GIF? I'm not sure. Is it a hard G? Yeah, it doesn't matter. So no, this is down now to 10.5, 11 at some of the higher limit spots, and that's not crazy. But Buffalo then has a pretty relatively soft landing against the Patriots before the weekend 18 matchup against the Dolphins. My opinion is that the Dolphins will probably lose one of these next two to the Cowboys and the Ravens, and that will put that Week 18 game into prime time to decide the AFC East and to decide the Bills' playoff fate one way or the other. Bills potentially in that game could be playing for their playoff lives and a home game, while the Dolphins will be playing for a home game or wild card, or maybe their playoff lives, depending on how the next 2 weeks go for them. So a lot of drama to be had with the Bills, and just in terms of stock up rating right now, they are in fact my second highest rated team in the AFC, just over how I would rate the Ravens. And it doesn't feel great, because they don't make it easy, except yesterday, I guess, which was more about the Cowboys, I thought. This is a Bills team that, if they get into the playoffs as at home in wild card weekend, then they could be thinking Super Bowl. But if they have to do it on the road, that has never been done before. That tends to wear down a team. And I think realistically, they could get a couple, they could be a party crasher, ruin the likes of, a bye home game for the Ravens, ruin a 2-7 matchup for the Chiefs. Like, that's definitely possible. But if they go in as a wild card, I'm not really interested in an AFC price or a Super Bowl price. 7-1 and 12-1, to me at least, are a little cooked in terms of the fact that the Bills are just going to have to do it themselves, and probably on the road. So, can't get involved with those futures. Do you have any Bills equity right now?
Yeah, I do. I backed a ton of poison to one Super Bowl after they looked like a juggernaut earlier in the season. So I haven't gone back to the well, but I've still got that. So that's what I'm riding out with. So I am cheering for the Bills. I think that it's been really underrated, just the acquisition of Russell Douglas and just giving them a legit corner who can trail these top guys, because now knocks Benford down in the pecking order, knocks Teron Johnson down in the pecking order. And those guys have been really the linebackers, like you mentioned, like Terrell Dodson, Terrell Bernard, these guys have been perfectly fine. I think Micah Hyde being out potentially for the season is kind of a problem, because Taylor Rapp has not been good, though it has allowed Damar Hamlin to get back out in the field. 7 defensive snaps, Drew.
7 snaps. I saw. I checked.
Yeah, it was a pleasant surprise. I thought he might be special teams only, but the big fella got out there and was running around on defense in a triumphant victory over the Cowboys. What I don't really understand, though, is how they were able to have such a dominant pass rush in that game, despite missing AJ Epinesa, who's out for it looks like a little while longer as well. And the fact that they're missing him, they're missing Daquan Jones. I mean, they're effectively missing Von Miller. That guy's a ghost at the moment. And so they're depending on guys like Rousseau, who's excellent, but then Leonard Floyd, who hasn't had a great season. And I don't really know what to make of what the Cowboys did. And I keep coming back to the fact that Dallas had 4 guys on the injury report listed with illness throughout the week, and I wonder if the team was just kind of cooked. And because if you were to just be told that the entire Dallas Cowboys team was sick yesterday, it's like, oh well, that would make a lot of sense because they certainly played like they had no energy whatsoever on either line in particular. What did you make of the Bills pass rush?
I thought it was fluky. Although the Bills, they do have some unique pressure schemes that I think are, they're tough to handle. I think if there, even set aside the idea that the Cowboys could have been ill to the tune of that quality of a performance, they were at home for 3 weeks in comfortable confines of Jerry World. And you go on the road in the month of December, it's going to be a tough test. If you go on the road after being at home for 3 weeks and having lots of extra rest in those games and really like performing at a very high level week in, week out, teams, performances on units performances are going to fall on a normal-ish distribution over the balance of the season. You're going to have some 95th percentiles. You're going to have some 5th percentiles, and sometimes they happen in back-to-back games, and that's kind of what it looked like for the Cowboys. So I wouldn't drastically put them stock down, but yesterday's game was hugely impactful for them in the futures sense, because now it is a very, very narrow margin for them in winning the NFC East, which means you got to go on the road. And if you saw anything about if you want to take away anything from the offensive line play against the Bills pass rush yesterday, then it was the communication wasn't quite there. They weren't as good on the road as they are at home. And if you're in in second round of the playoffs at the Link, it's going to be loud. Breaking news. It's going to be loud. If you're at Levi's in Santa Clara going up against the Niners, it's going to be loud. Like, you're going to have a tough time, getting over that factor and playing your best football. And if Dak is under a little bit of pressure and is not quite as sharp because the elements or because of the, just the effect of the pass rush, then things come unraveled pretty aggressively. Like, these Cowboys they're bullies. Like, when things are going well, they go really well. It feels like, and that tends to happen against lesser competition. And all of a sudden now you're going to be a road team against elite competition. I'm worried about the Cowboys doing much of anything in January. Do you think this is a little bit too soon to press the red flag on the Cowboys, or do you think that outcome was as meaningful as I'm alluding to?
I think their offense will be fine. I think there's just too much talent there. The fact that Zach Martin was banged up and came out, and Tyler Smith had his first bad game in a while. I'm not too concerned about the Dallas offense, but defensively, which ironically is probably thought by most people as their better unit, I think that if Parsons and Lawrence aren't getting home, it just doesn't seem like they have a ton. They got absolutely abused in the running game. I think the shine has kind of come off Deron Bland somewhat, even though it wasn't his fault yesterday. It wasn't the fault of their passing defense, but they just seem to be a little bit thin outside of Lawrence and Parsons getting home and the repercussions if they don't. So that would be a concern. And then, you mentioned the main problem, which is now that they're not quite locked into the 5 seed, but they almost are. And we're recording before Philly plays Seattle. But the fact that now they have to go, very likely, one, it looks like if they have to play at Tampa Bay, that's not an absolute layup at the moment. They'll be substantial favorites in that game, but they're not going to be double-digit favorites or anything. And then you're looking at round 2 against the Niners, if we assume that the Niners get the 1 seed and the 2-3 matchup is Philly-Detroit. and then you're on the road again. So this team, which cannot go on the road, is going to have to beat two excellent teams, including the best team in football, potentially in the Niners on the road, and that just doesn't seem particularly viable for the Cowboys. So I'm not sure there's any way to bet them at the moment, outside of maybe fading Micah Parsons, who still inexplicably is the Defensive Player of the Year favorite.
Yes. Yeah. Boy, is that a weird one. You know whose absence was clearly felt yesterday? Jonathan Hankins.
Which is weird. Like, if Jonathan Hankins is missing, the whole defense shouldn't burn.
That is weird. I agree. But I guess maybe the other side of the coin is worth kind of just considering. Like, the Bills' offensive line is playing really good football right now.
Yeah.
And if Parsons isn't getting home, he's not as effective. That's obviously in part because you had some scheme worked up to minimize his impact. So, I think the point is fair, though, where if you're up against an elite offensive line and you're on the road, you don't really have much of an advantage with your pass rush. And if you're up against an elite D line with your offensive line having some cracks, I think you're probably in deep trouble at some point in this playoffs. So, yeah, kind of a bummer because it felt like things were kind of peaking where you were going to get maybe an all-timer between the likes of the Cowboys and the Niners. And now, I don't know, man. Cowboys need to get some wins against some good teams or they're going to be tough to buy into at all.
Yeah. Sneaky thing about Parsons is that, all season on run defense, he's been mediocre. And yesterday he had a PFF run defense grade in the 30s, where it felt like the Bills were just completely going at him. Whereas Myles Garrett has been an excellent run defender. I think that's kind of one of the separators. Micah Parsons is the best pass rusher I've ever seen in my life.
Sure.
But as a run defender, I guess maybe he sells out a little bit to get the Hollywood sacks. All right. Before we get to MVP.
And he doesn't even get him, man. He's not his counting, his counting stats. These pressures are there, but the sacks just elude him.
It's kind of a symbolism for that team. The fact that they are kind of front runners a little bit.
Yes.
We'll see. I guess it doesn't really matter, the game against Miami now, because they're not going to win the division anyway, you would think. But if they lose that game, then that sounds a big alarm for the rest of their season. All right, Drew, find another way to celebrate the holiday season by being part of the Premier League festive fixtures beginning on Thursday, December 21st. We'll have 29 matches over 13 days on NBC, USA, and Peacock. So check out all the thrilling moments, from creative set pieces to scorching shots and amazing saves. It's the gift that keeps on giving. My beloved Gunners in very solid position in the Premier League. My beloved Brock Purdy is also in very solid position in the MVP market. He is a minus 200 favorite now. Lamar Jackson is plus 500. Dak Prescott is 6-1. I think he's done. Josh Allen 10-1. Jalen Hurts 11-1. Christian McCaffrey 18-1. And then Patrick Mahomes is 22-1. And I think there ends the list of realistic contenders. I don't think Tua can get there in any way, shape, or form. I don't think Tyreek Hill can get there anymore now that he's missed this past game and a half. What is your breakdown of the MVP market? Do you think these prices are fair?
I think it's a wrap.
Wow. It's great to hear.
This is one of the least controversial MVP discussions that I can really remember of in recent years. Like, there's some teeny tiny scope for Lamar to steal. We've talked about this now a couple weeks in a row, kind of pointing at that Baltimore San Francisco game, and now he's maybe not going into that with a fully healthy offensive line, with Ronnie Stanley going into the concussion protocol. He's not going to have Keaton Mitchell, who is a guy who had been kind of a nice breath of fresh air for that running game, who's out with an ACL. So, like, Lamar is going to have to get it done himself to beat Brock Purdy and the Mighty Niners on Christmas Day, or Christmas night, I guess. But I don't think that's happening. And I think people have kind of, you said it right. People are past the denial stage and they're on to anger. And it is what it is. Brock Purdy is here. He's for real. He's got a 30.8 EPA, total EPA lead over Dak Prescott. That's too big of a margin for Dak to make up at this point. And the head-to-head loss is always going to be a problem if you put those two guys side by side. And the fact the Cowboys aren't winning games, in these high leverage games now is a problem. So, yeah, it's pretty clearly Brock Purdy in my opinion. And I think the only kind of back of my head thought that I had today, reading some of the coverage and getting a sense of, is there really a voter problem? Because we don't really know like who the voting block is made up of in its entirety, and whether the people are ready to live with the idea of Brock Purdy being an elite passer. We can look through history and find examples like Kurt Warner, who came off of the street and won an MVP in 1999, or he wasn't on the street. Obviously, he was in a grocery store, I think, bagging groceries. But whatever the case is, I haven't seen the movie. Sorry. But Kurt Warner got the award deservingly, and I think this is basically the same situation where you have a clear, correct decision. And some people might not be there yet. They might vote for Christian McCaffrey for whatever reason. But I think there are enough people with clear eyes and clear minds on this situation to just do the right thing. The impact Purdy has had over winning football this year is light years above, the likes of McCaffrey or any other Niner. And trying to use some sort of mental calculus to not give him credit is kind of laughable, honestly. So hopefully everybody just gets past the denial and the anger stages and just gets to acceptance, and we can all have a lovely Christmas and New Year's, and then and a drama-free crowning of Brock Purdy as the MVP and award night.
Indeed. We can talk about on merit, where I agree that this isn't particularly close. You look at you want to look at EPA per play. Brock Purdy is 0.39 EPA per play, and second is Dak Prescott at 0.22. And so QBR, Purdy's first, 76. Yeah. Dak second, 72. So passer rating, Purdy 119. Second is Tua at 106. By all the statistical measures of MVP, clearly it is not close. So the entire handicap really is how much are people biased against Brock Purdy. And it's a strange market this year where I think in previous years, just kind of looking through the statistical indicators are all that you need. But if Brock Purdy's name was just, not even Joe Burrow, if his name was Zach Wilson, if he's the second pick in the draft and he was doing this, then we would be saying how his odds are like literally off the board right now. So the handicap is how biased is a voting block that we don't really know about, to your point. How biased are they kind of inexplicably against Brock Purdy? And I think that just sifting through sentiments, I think enough people have now moved on enough. And the thing is with Purdy is that I always believed that there would be a certain subsection of voters who are just not going to vote for this guy no matter what, which is incredibly stupid, but I think real. But the thing with Purdy is that there's just going to be no candidates left. Like there's going to be no viable alternatives. And we've seen them all fall over one by one. Tua took his turn as favorite. All right, well, he's completely done. Tyreek had a moment. All right, well, he's missed games and he's hurt. He's not going to get to 2,000 yards anymore, barring something truly miraculous. Dak Prescott, well, he just got completely exposed in the worst way possible. People this morning, the new flavor to kind of give them an out to not vote for Purdy is Josh Allen, who's coming off a game where he completed 7 passes for 94 yards. I believe that Allen might have had a shot if he had completely balled out yesterday and was 300 passing yards, 4 touchdowns. But he's going to max out at 11-6 with 1 million interceptions. He's 12th in the NFL in passer rating right now. I just don't see it for Allen at all. I would like Allen a lot more if his next 2 games were against Baltimore and San Francisco, but they're against the Chargers and the Patriots. And yes, he might generate momentum if he wins the division, but he's going to do that on the final day of the season. And there's not enough kindling for that for the fire to be lit with Josh Allen. So I would be stunned if Allen won, barring absolute chaos. And absolute chaos really is Purdy losing to Baltimore and then Baltimore losing to Miami the next week. That is the type of chaos that Allen would need, I think, to even have a chance. Like, I'm not convinced that Allen has a better chance of an MVP than Patrick Mahomes, who at least has an avenue to a 1 seed, and statistically is pretty comparable to Allen. So right now, the cleanest way I can handicap this, because I do think that people are desperate not to vote for Purdy, at least a certain group of people. And I think that if people have an excuse to vote for Lamar Jackson, then they will do that. And I think that if he sweeps these next 2 weeks of at San Francisco, home Miami, he does that in a 6-day span, and clinches the 1 seed with the second victory, I think he'll win MVP. And that is plus 380 to happen, basically, for that parlay to complete. So I think plus 500 is pretty good on Lamar. But I think that this is pretty much a binary market now, where Purdy is almost the entire other side. And you can bake in, maybe 5% of just pure chaos for Dak and Allen and Mahomes, and the chance that Tyreek comes back and gets the 2K. But really, I think it's a binary market between Purdy and Lamar, and I think that Lamar needs both of those wins to win.
Yeah, I think that all makes perfect sense. 450 plays into the season. Brock Purdy's the only quarterbacks who have done it better over the balance of the season were Tom Brady in 2007, Peyton Manning in 2004, Aaron Rodgers in 2011.
Yeah.
All 3 of those were no doubt almost unanimous MVPs. Did you know, by the way, that Tom Brady's 2007 was not a unanimous MVP?
Well, Randy Moss had the insane, record-breaking season, right?
Yeah, it wasn't. Nobody voted for Randy.
Who
One of the 50 voters voted for Brett Favre in 2007 over Tom Brady, which I have to go find out who and how and why, but it just kind of shows you there is some chaos in the voting block. People,
my memory is conflating that with offensive player of the year, where I think Moss got 18 votes or something off the top of my head, and Brady still beat him there. A lot crystallized for me about Brock Purdy and the way that people think about him. Listening to all the discourse the past week about Draymond Green and his place in NBA history, and when the same Purdy skeptics started aligning behind Klay Thompson being a better NBA player than Draymond Green, all kind of clicked into place a little bit, where there are a lot of parallels between Purdy and the best defensive player of the past 20 years. But anyway, let's quickly talk about offensive player of the year. McCaffrey's minus 155. He has flipped into favorite. Tyreek Hill is plus 110. This is a 2-way market. No one else is going to win this award now that A.J. Brown and CeeDee Lamb have fallen off. I don't see any reason why a quarterback would win this year. So CMC Hill missing the game on the weekend certainly hurt him in terms of his quest to break Calvin Johnson's record, to get to 2,000 yards. I still think he should be the favorite, though, over McCaffrey. And I think it's close, but I think that it should skew Hill on a coin flip, where I think he should be the slight favorite, just because he is so much more the identity of that Miami team. And he's had just a more historic season than McCaffrey. McCaffrey doesn't even have isn't alone in the league for touchdowns. He's tied with Tyreek's teammate, Raheem Mostert. And I just don't think that McCaffrey is having as singular and historic a season as Tyreek. And ultimately, I think that Tyreek will get more of the credit, but I think it's very close. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's a good summary. I think Tyreek deserves it. I don't know. Does that matter? Does it matter who we think should win this as opposed to what we think will happen, I guess? The Christian McCaffrey, I would have him actually as probably I don't want to sound like Christian McCaffrey slander. I loves watching him play. He's a very exciting player. I love what he adds in terms of dimensions to the Niners. He's the 5th-ish most important Niner after Purdy, Trent Williams, Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel, then McCaffrey. Maybe Kittle's ahead of him too. It's very tough to say.
He's pretty good. Yeah,
I'm not saying he's not good. I'm saying like if you swapped out McCaffrey for Jeff Wilson, you downgrading the Niners this week? Do you materially change your rating for them offensively if McCaffrey all of a sudden isn't going to play and you have to go with plan B?
I might rather, as someone who wants San Francisco to win, I am agnostic as to whether I would pick Trent Williams or Christian McCaffrey this week, just given the other weaknesses on the offensive line. Yeah, I agree. And that's just the ridiculous thing about McCaffrey. MVP, and that idea is like, well, one, his impact against the spread versus Brock Purdy. Two, I just think like the NFC title game dispelled all of this. Look what the team looks like without a quarterback. And I understand they went from a quarterback to none at all, and they looked terrible, but that's the point. If they'd lost Christian McCaffrey for the game and had no running back and just put Deebo Samuel back there put anyone back there for the game, you have such a more functional offense. Just the quarterback is too important. So I agree. I think McCaffrey's magnificent. He might be the best running back since Adrian Peterson in terms of the way that he affects you in the passing game as well as his ability as a runner. But I think that Tyreek is not in a different sphere. I just think he's a much more impactful player, and he's had the more historic season.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think
that ultimately voters will lean that way.
Yeah,
but that is a close one, closer than I thought it would be.
Yeah. So do we have two wrong players favored? DPOY and OPOY?
Yes. I feel a lot more strongly about DPOY that Garrett should be the favorite. I feel a lot better about Garrett's chances of winning that award than I do about Tyreek OPOY, just because I think McCaffrey is a lot more scary than Parsons and TJ Watt, who's I think just not going to win because that team is so poison. Even if he's got 6 more sacks than Garrett, I think he still might lose because of the overall team defense. And now that it's coming out that, all the stuff that Garrett does that doesn't show up specifically in the sack column, that Kevin Stefanski wonderfully promoted today. But I think those are the two awards that I don't think Dan Campbell should be favored for Coach of the Year either. I would have Steichen there at this point. But yeah, we're going on.
How about
All
this?
right.
15 weeks in the books and 3 markets are wrong.
Yeah, I still think Damar Hamlin's value for comeback player of the year as well. That's another one.
Yeah.
All right. We are done. Don't forget to check out NBCSports.com for more information to help you with your wagers. Thanks to those of you watching on the NBC Sports YouTube channel. And if you're listening to us in podcast form, don't forget to rate and subscribe. Also a reminder to find all your favorite NBC Sports shows on Amazon Music. Just head to amazon.com/NBC Sports. From Jay Croucher and Drew Dinsick. We'll see you soon.